for step 6, attaching the gears. Well, this is a pretty intensive step actually. There are a lot of moving parts that we have to put together, and here are all of the gears, joints, shafts, bearings, etc. that are all a part of this step. So we're going to stick with this side first and do everything we need to do here, and then we'll move on to the other side of that front gearbox. So I'll set this up, and I think what we'll do is let's get the joint in there with the E-clip, because I think that's important to get that done first before we do anything else. So first off, let's get the gearbox joint into the gearbox. So here is the side of the gearbox that we're going to be working with. It's showing you the MA10, which is this one, which is the bearing that came in the kit. So that's the one we're going to put into here. So we need to just pop that into place, just like that. And then we're going to grab one of our gearbox joints, slide that through. And again, we're going to need to grab one of the E-clips. And I'll grab my pliers. And we snap it into place. So there we go. There is one of our gearbox joints attached and ready to go. Now, we'll save this one for the last bit. What we do need to do is very similar to what we did with the other side, which is get this propeller joint in place along with the gears and the bearings and the thrust bearing in place. So what we're going to do is let's grab the gearbox joint, or propeller joint, and they're showing you greasing it up, so that's exactly what we'll do. And again, I don't normally, but because this is also part of the gearbox itself, I would rather have grease on here. And if you've noticed, I've also opened up another grease that I had kicking around just because I ran out. So I would suggest getting more grease before building this. It just does seem like you'll end up using a lot of it. So let's grab this one. So this is the ball bearing that we're replacing everything with. I'm going to pop that into place just like that. This one, if you remember, here's our gear where they want you to put the thrust bearing in place. The thrust bearing is the one that's got the balls in there. That's going to sit just like that. So this is now going to pop right in place down there. Oops. Get it the right way. Right in place just like that. And then we have our little 850 bearing, which is going to pop in right down there. Now we can take our propeller joint and find the right positioning and slide that into place just like that. So that's all nice and smooth and in the right place. So once that is done, we can move on to this next bit, which is essentially sliding this bevel gear on top of it. Now, when I was opening that other grease, it kind of exploded on me, so I've actually already put the grease on. So you can see here, all we're going to do is pop that over top of the gearbox joint. And you can see it had to be greased, and this has to be greased. And again, if I turn this around, I'm going to grease it simply by holding the top and putting the grease on as I spin it. So there we go. We've got our grease in there on both gears. So that side of the gearbox is finished. So now we're going to move on to the right side, which is a little bit more complicated because we've got all the gears to put in. So we'll do this now. So for this side of the gearbox, we're going to do something very similar. We need to get the gearbox joint in there with one of the bearings that actually came with the kit. So we're going to use this bearing here, pop that in. Then we're going to grab our gearbox joint, push that up, and we grab our E-clip again. Get that into place. Grab our pliers. And that one isn't wanting to go in quite as easy. There we go. So now that is in place. So we've got our gearbox joint nicely attached. Just do the check to make sure. Yes. So now what we need to do is, because of the way this gearbox is designed, these two gears have to go in first because they essentially are going to end up overlapping each other. So in order to do that, we're going to have to put this together. So with this gear here, we've got one of the bigger ball bearings, which is replacing the bushings that come in the kit, and then another 850 bearing that's going to sit right there on the other side. Then with this one, we have the same situation where we've got another bearing, which I must not have grabbed. There we go. And we're going to put that into that side, and we've got the 850 bearing on the other side, just like that. So those two gears have the ball bearings in place, and then you can see that it needs to be greased up and put into place. So if we were to grab our gearbox, we know that this has to be greased up. So I'm going to just do that here. Because it's going to be more or less hidden when we put the other gear on. And because of that, I'd rather get this done now so that I make sure that it gets properly greased. So you can see here, that has to fit down there, just like that on top. And then this gear is going to sit on top of that. So we'll do that too. So I'm going to grease this up, which it's going to blend with the other gear that we just put on. So I may not be quite as liberal with the grease because it's going to be greased on both sides anyway, but I'm going to put some on. And now that is going to sit down there like that. So it basically is going to sit overlapping each other. Just grab the paper towel. Then it's showing the MA15. The MA15 is the smaller tube, and they want you to grease that up. So we'll do that. And that's going to slide into here. And then we have the MA14, which was the bigger tube. And again, I'm going to grease that up. And I don't think you need to go crazy on these tubes, but just make sure there's enough lube on there. And then that's going to sit in there just like that. And then you can see A3. Now, technically, that's going to basically sit just like that, which is kind of the reverse of what we did with the other side of the gearbox. And now we need to work on this side. So this gear, the right bevel, is going to sit down there and attach onto the joint. So, excuse me. So we're going to grease this up. There we go. And then we can see that we have this pin, which again, they want you to grease that up as well. So we'll do that. And that's going to slide into there. And then we have our big differential gear. And again, same idea. I want to put a bit of grease into each of the holes. Also helps to hold the gear in place. Whoa. Squeeze that a bit too much. And we'll put one in there. One in there. And one in there. And again, same idea. I'm going to grease this up simply by spinning this as we go, which just seems to be the easiest way to do this sort of thing. There we go. And then it's the openings on this side facing out, is now going to sit over top of that, and it's going to mesh with the other gear that we just put down. Now, same thing, but the way that I want to do this now is I'm going to grease it by holding this and spinning it this way. And just need to get more grease going out here. And I mean, we have the grease from the other gear that's also starting to move through this as well, but you get the idea. And I've got quite a bit on there now. So that is how the other side of the gearbox is going to look when you've finished it. So that means that step 6 now is complete. So we're going to move now on to step 7, and we're going to attach both the gearbox halves together.